So often in spiritual community, we come together to celebrate the beauty in life, right? We come together for weddings, we come together to celebrate when babies are born, and we hold space for one another at these celebratory, joyful times. And we also come together in community oftentimes when we're grieving at someone's passing and hold one another in that sorrowful space. And I know that we've even come together in community over the last year. We've found new ways to connect in that sadness and in that grief. And these are these really socially acceptable ways of being present with one another in our spiritual journey and acknowledging that Spirit is present, that God is present in those experiences, in the highs and in the lows. But what happens in between those spaces? What happens in between like that glaring light of joy and celebration and the darkness and the sorrow? There are all of these chapters of life and all of these experiences of spirit that happen in between. And how do we do that together consciously in spiritual community? And how do we do that with ourselves, right? How do we experience all of those things that are in between also as spirit? Because we so often have been told that those things aren't God, right? We are told that we are not being spiritual when we're experiencing so many of the things that are just human life. And we have decided that they're somehow less than God and less than spirit. But what is it? Is it really ever less than God? Of course it's not, because we're never without the power and the presence of the divine. So what about all those other ways? The ways that are in between the brightest shades and the darkest darks. The places that we don't maybe talk about, and sometimes that we don't even want to acknowledge are a part of our day-to-day or a part of our experience right here and right now, whether it's fleeting or something that's sticking around for a while. What about the fright-filled, doubt-filled, needling thoughts in the back of our minds? The steamy, betwixt, bewildering, bothersome moments of lust and desire that sometimes rob us of our senses. The dizzying moments of confusion, frustration, anger and rage that make us feel like we've forgotten ourselves, or worse, that we have forgotten that we are a part of spirit. And sometimes even make us wonder if God has forgotten us. But what if we take a deep breath and allow ourselves to be present with the God that is present in all of those things?
Hi, you guys. It's nice to see you today. I want to tell you a story. I told it a while back in the long form version. I'll give you the Reader's Digest today. It's about the time I had an interaction with a Ku Klux Klan member and how it really changed my life. And what's interesting is that the experience was real. It did happen. It was both real and true. And it's a perfect metaphor for the world we live in, for the way we interact with each other, and for what it means to be one with all. So I'm getting on a plane in El Paso to go to Los Angeles. And I see this guy with this t-shirt. This guy was not shy. T-shirt said, Ku Klux Klan, Realm of Texas. Now, then, and always, or something to that effect. And I freaked out. I was like, oh my God, this is really happening. I was a lot younger, a lot more confrontational. And I had it in my mind that I was going to, destroy this guy psychically. I was going to beam in all of my angst and anger about who I believed him to be, and I was just going to zero in on his head. And so, long story short, in the course of our flight, I'm doing all these things, all these machinations in my mind to create discomfort for him. And we all have had experiences where we feel somebody thinking about us and we turn around and they're looking at the back of our head. Or in other circumstances, we feel somebody strongly, their presence, whatever, and then the phone rings and it's them calling. And that's that connection that we all have, right? That's that psychic interweaving of the one mind. And it goes in all ways. It goes, to the mother-child connection. It goes to the lover-lover connection. And it also can go to the adversary connection. Because we're all one. Whatever name we give ourselves, adversary, ally, friend, enemy, lover, acquaintance, we are all one. And so I'm up there on this plane, flying at about 30,000 feet, and through the course of my ideations around this person's demise, the thought comes to me that I'm flying up at 30,000 feet with this individual. And that if anything happens to this individual at this moment, it's likely that it's going to happen to me as well. And that the metaphor of that is that we are all on the plane together, no matter who we think that other individual is. We are on the plane together. And if that other individual doesn't arrive at their destination on the metaphorical plane, because the metaphorical plane has crashed, then it has crashed with us in it. And so it's in our best interest, enlightened self-interest, it's in our best interest to hope, not for our own arrival safely at the destination, but for the arrival of everybody else safely at their destination, guaranteeing for us that we will arrive safely at our destination as well. And so despite the fact that I had all this loathing, all this absolute animus towards this individual on this plane with me, who I felt was anathema to everything that I was, everything I believed in, everything I held to be of value, and this stark enemy to all whom I loved and cared about, it became clear to me that in order for me to arrive in Los Angeles safely, that individual had to arrive in Los Angeles safely too. In order for me to have a pleasant, uneventful flight to Los Angeles in that moment, that other individual had to have a pleasant, uneventful flight to Los Angeles as well. And I've never, ever, ever forgotten that lesson. That despite how I may feel about anyone, love, hate, or otherwise, the only way that my life is going to be the life I want to live on this small little ball in the middle of the galaxy, in the middle of the universe, is if everybody else is having a similar experience. There can be no other, because we all are one. Thank you.
Hello, my sweet ones. This is Bonnie, and I wanted to talk to you today about politics. And the politics I want to talk about are not the big plant the flag 4-year presidential politics. They are the, I can't believe he said that. This is not the place, not during Thanksgiving dinner politics. And I want to start with a story about my best friend, Melissa. So she and I have been best friends since we were 13, and we are above 40 now. And we grew up together in southern New Mexico. We went our separate ways, and we still called each other on our birthdays, even if we forgot. We love each other's families, and I love her fiercely. And we are almost on opposite ends of the political spectrum on many issues. But we don't shy away from those conversations, because Melissa is the type of person that she is the neighborhood mama. If you're a kid, if you're a cat, a dog, if you scraped your knee, you go to Melissa because she's your mama. And if you need a conversation and how to talk to someone or going through something, you come to me because I'll listen and I'll help out. And this is who we are fundamentally. And I think about the things that we have gone through and the conversations that we've had. And these are hard conversations. Like, they're conversations about capital punishment, gun control, abortion. They're about gay rights. They're about marriage and divorce. They're about religion. They're about who we are as humans, and do we have the right to end a life, and do we have the capacity to do so as a society? So these are real issues that we talk about, sometimes over drink, sometimes in the harsh light of day, sometimes in unprepared spaces, or sometimes when we're not centered, or when we've had a couple of breaths. So what I want to tell you today is, when you want to talk about politics with someone, find that intersectionality. It helps when you have history with them, and it helps when they're one of your best friends. But if they're new, a new friend, if they're a coworker, if they're that distant uncle or that cousin you don't talk to very often. Hold your space, know your boundaries, and hold that intersectionality, what you have in common, with love and gratitude, and make it big. Be prepared to have your ego a little bruised. Be prepared to grow. And if you don't agree, you don't agree. This isn't an argument. This is a conversation about expressing your viewpoints. And know that you are loved and we are all one. Because when you have these political conversations, you have a minute to decide, am I going to fight? Am I going to express? Or am I gonna just pass the mashed potatoes? And the other thing is, I have a new friend. Her name is Kathy, and I don't know what her political views are. I have a feeling that they're a little different from mine. But we embrace, we congratulate each other, we squeeze each other so hard because we do hard things. We are both women in sports, and we try really hard hills and runs and cycling and events. Our intersectionality is our deep respect for each other to try. And you may not find that with your boss or your coworker, because we don't talk about that during work hours, but happy hour is fair game. And I want you to be prepared to hold that space. Know that I love you. Know that I support you. And while our political views may be different or the same, I'm here to hear them. I'm here to hold boundaries around mine. And I'm here to grow with you. Because it may not be my journey to change my mind. It may be your journey to change your mind, or vice versa. But the point is, it's growth, it's connection, it's compassion, it's listening, and it's love. So I hope today we have had a little moment to talk about that taboo of politics. And good luck, especially when you're passing those mashed potatoes.
I've had people tell me I shouldn't listen to heavy metal music, as if to imply that that's not a creative expression of God. And what about drug addiction? One thing you might not know about me is that I have had a long struggle with drug addiction throughout my life. And I'm grateful not just to be here on the other side of it, but truly grateful for every bit of the experience. And I came to that awareness in my recovery process by working with my mentors like Reverend Amani, and learning, that addiction is a sickness of the ego. The way to fix it isn't to try to get rid of the ego. I had to heal my ego. I had to heal my relationship with that part of myself, right? Put her in her right place. And so I actually gave that part of me a name, and I call her Esmeralda, and we're homies. But I did not let her be in the driver's seat. We've worked it out. But I had to approach that part of myself with love, with acceptance, not with you are bad and evil and I'm keeping you out. I have to actually be in conversation with my own fear, with that voice in my head that leads me to want to do self-destructive things out of, honestly, a desire to help and protect me. Like, that's the beauty of the process that I went through. Because in the beginning I thought, wow, like, what's wrong with me that I was just basically saying F you to God and keeping myself separate from the voice of my inner wisdom. And then it was presented to me that, like, what if it wasn't you saying F you? What if it was just you being very scared and doing the absolute best I could with the tools that I had at the time? And that was a huge breakthrough for me, realizing that it was always about self-love. It was always about self-care. I don't have to hold against myself all those years that I felt like I was failing at practicing self-care and self-love, because always that's what I was trying to do. I didn't have the right tools. I didn't know the healthy ways of doing that, and I had to learn it, you know? But Spirit was there within me all along, and Spirit is there within me as Esmeralda, and she actually gets to serve me and help me in my path now because we have a relationship, and I don't reject any part of myself. I include all the parts of myself, and then everybody's able to coexist harmoniously. And so that's my story.
Hello, I am Reverend Amani Malaika. I am so glad you are watching today. We have been thrilled to reach thousands over this last year through our online inspirational content. I am so excited about Spirit Speaks. I am so excited about all that our team is doing to transform the lives of people around the world. And I invite you to join us by supporting this work. You can text to give, the instructions are on the screen, and I am so grateful for every contribution you make. Thank you.
I'm going to invite you to take a deep breath with me. Close your eyes if you feel comfortable. Let's just take a couple of deep, cleansing breaths and settle into this moment. Take a deep breath and allow yourself to be present with that God stuff. With Spirit, with the love and the light of the divine. It's right here, right now, as the power and presence of me and the power and the presence of you. Because right here and right now, just like every other moment, you and I are the power and the presence of the divine. We are God embodied, walking around on this planet. And there is not one part of our experience as humans that has made us less than spirit, that has made us less than godly, that is anything other than the holy, bewildering, beautiful truth of who we are and who we have come here to be. And that is spirit walking around on the planet. So just take one more deep breath into that. And allow yourself to settle into this conversation with me and into this journey, knowing that you are it. You are spirit. You are divine. You are love and you are light, even in the places where you might be feeling a little bit gray or dark. So I'm really excited that Reverend Amani asked me to talk about this, because one thing that she knows that I love to talk about is sex. And I do. I love to talk about it specifically in this context, specifically understanding that our pleasure and that excitement and joy that we feel in that experience is divine. And it wouldn't be a part of our human experience if it were anything other than that. When we talk about desire, when we talk about these things that give us pleasure in our lives, we really tap into an energy that is helping us create a life filled with beauty and meaning for us. I don't like to bandy the word manifestation around, but it does help us to manifest a life from that space of deep wanting and deep desire and deep pleasure, right? I don't know about you, but when I think about the things that I want to create in my life, they are very much filled with pleasure. And if I decide that I'm going to deny myself an experience of pleasure somewhere, anywhere, then that is going to create the experience over and over again of denying yourself pleasure. So any place where I can recognize that I can be present with my pleasure, that I can give into that pleasure, of course, within the confines of consent and informed adults and all of that, and be present with my pleasure, I am creating a space in my life for pleasure, to experience pleasure, to manifest and create and live pleasure. And that sounds pretty darn exciting to me. And it certainly sounds like that experience of unconditional love that is spirit, that is God, that is the universe, that has brought me into life, would very much so love for me to experience and create a life filled with that kind of pleasure. So I can understand that with some conscious awareness and bring that into my spiritual practice and acknowledge that God's with me in that pleasure. And something that has loved me so deeply that I have been loved into existence really would only want for me to be creating from that pleasure and from that joy. And when we look at it the other side of the coin in these other areas of gray, when we look at frustration, we can bring some conscious awareness to it. What am I frustrated about? If I'm going to look at myself like I am in my terrible twos, what does that mean? What am I so frustrated about in this moment? What am I trying to create? What am I not keeping up with in life? Because life is moving at this pace and changing and transforming and trying to bring in all of these gifts all of the time. And when I'm not keeping up with that, when I'm not paying attention, when I don't feel like I am in touch with myself to communicate my needs in those situations, then I'm terrible too. Right? And I'm running around in that frustration when that frustration is actually a gift that's being given to me in that moment to say, hey, what is your conscious awareness? Let's bring it into your awareness. Let's think about this. What is this frustration? Is there something that you could be communicating better? Is there a way that you could be more present with life as it is changing in a way that would provide you with more grace and ease? There is something in this experience of frustration that is valuable. Maybe I'm here to learn something. Maybe it is actually just pointing me in a way towards growth, or in ways that, you know what, I haven't grown a whole lot. And now is an opportunity for me to think about that and be present. And remember at all times that spirit is present here. And I kind of touched a little bit on rage and how that conscious awareness helps us shift this experience, right? Because we've all had a moment, at least one moment. I'm going to ask you to just recall maybe just one moment in your life where you've experienced rage, to be willing to acknowledge that it is a part of your human experience. And the amount of grace that you can provide yourself, first of all, by acknowledging that spirit was present in that rage. Because that is first in any of these situations, the gift that we can give ourselves when we recognize that spirit was present into that. And when spirit was present in my rage, what was spirit bringing with that rage? What was it holding space for when I was raging? And how can I be with this in a new way? Because we often think of rage as that moment where something snaps and we lose control and there's just no other way around it. But that's not rage. Many of us experience rage and we deal with it. And if we don't deal with it, it keeps coming back to deal with it over and over again until we deal with it. So what happens if we can just take the deep breath, bring a conscious awareness and say, spirit is present in this rage. Spirit has brought me into this moment where I feel like something has crossed the boundaries of love and is the antithesis of this loving experience that I know is at the center of my being and everyone else's being, and is here to show me something. This boundary has been crossed, and I am so committed to being the power and the presence of love that I am enraged because that does not feel like it's a part of this experience at all. And when we can watch how those two things do this dance and connect and know that spirit is here bringing us and in the presence of this rage, we can allow ourselves to be led by the love and the rage dance. And watch as we understand how meaningful something is to us and how powerful we can be when something means enough to us that we can become enraged when we feel like that boundary has been crossed. It's a really powerful moment, right? It's a really powerful moment for us to see in us what has gotten us this excited, this enraged, that we are in this space, that I love this thing so much and I am so committed to the beauty of it, that when it is anything other than that beauty, I feel like I have to speak up. I feel like I have to move. I feel like I have to advocate. I feel like I have to share my thoughts. Whatever that is moving us. That is such a heartfelt way of being when we can bring a conscious awareness to it and be really gentle with ourselves as we own it. And it's such a powerful part of our spiritual practice, because when we can sit with our rage, when we can acknowledge our rage, when we can pray with our rage, it will propel us into knowing what love really is for us. And we can bring a really conscious, mindful experience of spiritual practice to that. And I think that that's just what is so powerful about all of these experiences, when we allow them to be transformed by love. When we allow them to be a part of our dance of life, we can see that they become a whole other thing. And they actually are propelling us to what is authentic and true and at the heart of who we are and who we have come here to be. If we can look at our desire, if we can look at the places where we feel like we are stuck, and if we can look at the things that make us feel like our heads are about to explode, we are looking at the things that are so important to us, that they are making us uncomfortable. And acknowledge that nothing shifts, nothing changes without some moments of discomfort. So when we can love ourselves in these uncomfortable places, when we can love ourselves when we're wearing an itchy sweater, or when we feel like we have nowhere to turn, we can love the world in those moments, right? If we can first give that gift to ourselves of being so deeply loving that we understand our desire and our frustration and our rage are just a part of spirit, then we can hold space for the world around us when it's changing and when it's uncomfortable, and know that spirit is present here, and never feel like we have been abandoned by this experience of God and love, and know that for other people. So I love that thought. So really grateful that I've had the opportunity to share some time with you talking about these untouchable experiences and how oftentimes they feel like they are the antithesis of spirit, and how exciting it is for me to know that God is present there. And yeah, man, I just love it. So in tradition, I normally, when I am speaking at Albuquerque CSL, I will end with a poem. This is from the poem Birthday by Andrea Gibson. I suppose I love this life in spite of my clenched fist. I open my palm and my lifelines look like branches from an aspen tree, and there are songbirds perched on the tips of my fingers. And I wonder if Beethoven held his breath the first time his fingers touched the keys, the same way a soldier holds his breath the first time his finger clicks the trigger. We all have different reasons for forgetting to breathe, but my lungs remember the day my mother took my hand and placed it on her belly and told me the symphony beneath was my baby sister's heartbeat. And I knew that life would tremble, like the first tear on a prison guard's hardened cheek, like a prayer on a dying man's lips, like a vet holding a full bottle of whiskey like an empty gun in a war zone. Sometimes the scales themselves weigh far too much, the heaviness of forever balancing blue sky with red blood. We were all born on days where too many people died in terrible ways, but you still have to call it a birthday.
Thank you so much for watching today. I am so grateful for your presence. One way that you can support this work, reaching those around the world, is to text to give. It's an easy way to contribute and be a part of this mission of transforming lives. Thank you.